Hello everyone and welcome. This is the very first story on this channel and we're excited to have you here. If you enjoy this kind of manhwa content, we'd really appreciate your support as we grow this community together. Now let's begin. The world admires those who wield power, but the most dangerous man in history could not use a single skill. He only forged them, and every legend you know began in his hands. This is the story of the skill forger. If you enjoy this journey and want to see what happens next, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. Now, grab a treat, take a seat, and let the story begin. On his 16th birthday, Ren Kaito stood in a long grey line with every other kid in the district. This was awakening day, the moment your superhuman ability revealed itself. The boy ahead of him manifested a blade of pure lightning. The crowd erupted into cheers. Then it was Ren's turn. He stepped forward, his heart pounded. The system scanned him, silence. Then a single line appeared, skill forge, unclassifiable, F rank. The weeks that followed were a slow funeral. Every academy rejected him. F rank, unclassifiable, meaningless. His grandmother tried to smile and say it did not matter, but the bills kept piling up. Her cough grew worse. By winter she was gone. Ren stood alone at the gravesite, 16 years old with no family and no future. 2 years passed. Ren worked the night shift at Hana's convenience store in the outer ring. He stocked shelves, he wiped counters, he watched the world move on without him. By day he slept in a cramped studio apartment. By night he was invisible. No friends, no connections, no hope, just a faded hoodie and a stack of unpaid rent notices. One freezing night, Ren stepped into the back alley to take out the trash. A faint sound stopped him. A weak mewling curled behind a dumpster was a small grey cat, half its ear torn off, one eye scarred shut, barely breathing. Its ribs showed through its matted fur. Ren crouched down. The cat looked at him. It was dying, and for some reason Ren could not walk away. Ren touched the cat's fur, and then golden light exploded from his palm. The cat's body lifted off the ground, floating in a swirl of amber sparks. A constellation of glowing text circled them both. Ren tried to pull away, but he could not. The light burned, the cat screamed, and then silence. The cat dropped to the ground. It was breathing. Its wounds were gone. The cat stood up. It looked at Ren, then it walked straight through the metal dumpster as if it were made of smoke. Ren stared at his palm. The gear and scale mark glowed faintly. He had changed the cat's skill. He had created something new. He sat there in the alley, shaking, the cat rubbing against his leg. He was not worthless. He was the only one who could do this. Ren woke to find the grey cat perched on his chest, except the cat was not a cat anymore. She looked like a teenage girl with silver grey hair, feline ears, and mismatched eyes. She tilted her head. "You saved me." Ren scrambled backward off the mattress. He tested his power on a dying houseplant. Golden light pulsed from his palm. The plant convulsed, thorns erupted, leaves turned glossy and dark. Within seconds the dead plant became a carnivorous vine that snapped at his fingers when he pulled away. The power was real, and it was terrifying. Ren sat on the floor staring at the vine. The cat girl needed a name. Ashen, he called her, for her grey fur. She nodded once. He picked up his phone and typed a message. "I can change your skill." He posted it where desperate people might see. Then he waited. 3 days of silence. Ren checked his phone obsessively between stocking shelves. Ashen stayed in his apartment, learning to walk on 2 legs, knocking things over. He was about to give up when his phone buzzed at 3 in the morning. Unknown number. A girl's voice shaking. "Please, I need your help." They met in an abandoned warehouse. She came alone, a tall girl with silver-white hair and desperate pale blue eyes. Her name was Lena. Her skill was water droplet, the weakest of the weak. She was days from expulsion. Ren stood in the shadows, white mask on. He had never done this before. He stepped forward. Ren touched Lena's hand. Golden light exploded from his palm. Her body lifted off the ground. Her F-rank skill text shattered into pieces and reformed in the air. Lena screamed as icy mist erupted from her skin. The warehouse temperature dropped 40 degrees in seconds. Frost crawled across every surface. When the light faded, Lena stood in the center of a frozen crater. Her hair had turned pure white, her eyes glowed pale blue, the air around her crackled with frost. Hydro Dominion, absolute zero, SS rank. She turned to thank him, but he was already gone, running into the night, heart pounding. The next morning, Ren watched the news in his apartment, Ashen beside him. Every channel showed the same footage, a girl freezing an entire warehouse solid in seconds. The reporters called her the Ice Queen. The Academy reinstated her. The government wanted to recruit her. Ren's phone buzzed, new message. I saw what you did. I want the same. His phone would not stop buzzing. Desperate people, rich people, dangerous people, they all wanted a new skill, a better life. Ren took his first paying client, an old veteran with a broken skill and a dying daughter. The forge worked. The veteran walked out with a B-rank ability. For the first time, Ren held money earned from his power. The veteran cleared a dungeon the next day. News spread through the underground. There really was someone who could change skills. And one night, a small figure was waiting for Ren when he left the warehouse. Choppy purple-black hair, mismatched eyes, a smirk that did not reach her face. Jin Soha. Everyone called her Jinny. She knew everything. Jinny offered a deal. She would handle clients, payments, locations. She would keep his secret. In exchange, 20%. Ren agreed. He did not have a choice. For 2 weeks it worked perfectly. Then a client used his new skill to rob a bank. People got hurt. Ren stared at the news, hands shaking. Jinny watched him. This is what you signed up for. Ren sat alone that night. Ashen found him staring at his palms. I hurt people. Ashen sat beside him. You also saved people. Both can be true. He did not sleep. The next morning he told Jinny his rules. No killing skills, no children. Everyone who I forge owes me a favor, unpaid. Jinny shrugged. Your funeral. A woman came through Jinny's network. Her child was dying from a skill that consumed her life force. Only an SSS rank healing skill could save her. Ren knew the cost would be high, but he watched the mother cry and he could not say no. He performed the forge. Golden light filled the room. The child's E-rank healing skill mutated into Rebirth Genesis, SSS rank. The girl opened her eyes. Her frail pink hair regained its color. She was healed. Ren looked at his reflection in the window. A streak of gray ran through his black hair. The cost was visible now. He was 19. He looked 25. The girl he saved was named Sarah Yu. Her father was Commander Yu Hansel, the one-armed war hero who ran the Superhuman Bureau. Sarah came to thank the forger in person. Ren could not bring himself to tell her the truth. He just nodded. When she hugged him, he froze. He was not used to gratitude. It felt heavier than he expected. Lena started visiting the convenience store. She did not know Ren was the forger to her. He was just the quiet boy working the night shift. She came in for coffee. She stayed to talk. She told him about hunting the forger, how she owed him everything. Ren smiled and nodded and felt like he was drowning in his own lie. That night, Ren stood in front of the mirror. More grey hairs. A new wrinkle at the corner of his eye. Ashen appeared behind him. You are using too much power too fast. He ignored her. There were still people who needed help. He could stop any time. He just did not want to. The power was the only thing that made him matter. A message arrived on Jinny's encrypted line. It was not from a client. It was from a man who called himself the Collector. He knew about Ren. He knew about Jinny, and he had something that belonged to her, an old ID card from her past life. The message was simple. Bring me the forger, or I burn everything you escaped from. Jinny showed Ren the message. Her hands were steady, but her eyes were not. The Collector was Kael Dracos, the king of the black market. He dealt in stolen skills, forged documents, debts. He owned people without them knowing. Jinny had run from him once. She could not run again. Ren looked at her. Then we do not run. We meet him. They met Kael in a penthouse overlooking the city. He was tall, lean, dressed in an immaculate black suit. A thin scar across his lips gave him a permanent slight smile. He offered champagne, he offered wealth, he offered protection. All Ren had to do was work for him permanently. Ren refused. Kael's smile did not waver. He touched Ren's shoulder. debt bind. Kale's skill activated. Anyone who owed him anything became bound to obey, but Ren owed him nothing. The skill slid off him like water. Kale's eyes widened. For the first time his smile cracked. The forger could not be bound. Ren walked out of the penthouse alive, but marked. Kale now knew his face, his voice, his height, everything. News of the failed binding reached the 8 pillars, the 8 most powerful superhumans on Earth. They had been watching the forgers rise with interest. Now they saw a threat. Pillar 3, the Reaper, declared first, "Find the forger, kill him, before he creates someone who can challenge us." The hunt was now official. Ren had made himself the most wanted man alive. A black van pulled up outside Hannah's convenience store. Men in black suits stepped out. Ren watched from the window, Ashen beside him. "They found me." Ashen's ears flattened. "Not yet. Go." Ren grabbed his mask and bolted through the back door into the alley. The men entered the store. Grandma Hannah looked up from the counter. Her eyes were not the eyes of an old woman. The men never came out. Ren heard nothing. No fight, no screams, just silence. He waited in the alley, frozen. Then the back door opened. Grandma Hannah stepped out, wiping her hands on her apron. She looked at Ren standing there in his mask. She smiled. "I was wondering when you would trust me. You look just like your mother when you run." Ren's world stopped. The back door clicked shut. Ren stood frozen in the alley, white mask in his hand. Grandma Hannah leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Her posture was different, straight, sharp. Her eyes held nothing of the warm old woman who had handed him free rice cakes for 3 years. "I trained your mother," she said. "I was there when she discovered her power, when she gave birth to you, and I was there when she died." Ren could not speak. Hannah continued. Her name was Haruka Kato. She was the original forger. The 8 pillars wanted her power. She refused them. They killed her. Hannah reached into her apron and pulled out a small worn box. "Your mother asked me to give you this on the day you turned 18. You're late." Ren took the box with trembling hands. Inside was an old photograph, a woman with long black hair and a single white streak holding a baby, a worn leather journal, a small brass key. Ren opened the journal that night in his apartment, Ashen reading over his shoulder. His mother's voice came alive through the pages, descriptions of her power, her fear of the pillars, her love for a man she could not protect. The last entry was unfinished. "They found us. I have to run. If you're reading this, my child, forge your own path. Do not become them." Ren closed the journal. His hands were steady for the first time in weeks. He looked at Ashen. "I'm done hiding. The pillars want a forger. They're going to get one." Ashen's mismatched eyes searched his face. "You're not afraid?" Ren shook his head. "I'm angry. Anger is better." He put the white mask on. Dawn was breaking. A new day. A new war. The assassin came 3 nights later. Ren was walking home from the convenience store when the shadows on the wall moved wrong. A blade materialized from darkness, aimed at his throat. He dodged by instinct, barely. The wraith melted out of the alley wall, a figure made of living shadow. Ren had no combat skill. He had nothing but his forge. In that split second, he did something insane. He forged his own reflexes. Golden light surged through Ren's body. Time seemed to slow. He saw the wraith's next strike before it came. Every muscle twitch, every shadow ripple. He sidestepped cleanly and ran. The wraith's scream of frustration followed him into the night. Ren collapsed in the warehouse, gasping. A new grey streak had appeared in his hair. Ginny found him there. "We need to call in every favor, every single one." Lena received the message in her academy dorm, a coded number she had hoped never to see again. "The forger needs you." She stared at her phone for a long time. The boy who saved her, the boy who changed her life, the boy she had been hunting for weeks without knowing it was him. She grabbed her coat. The air around her froze solid as she walked out. She was done being ignorant. They gathered in the warehouse at midnight. Lena stood by the door, arms crossed, her cold expression, hiding a storm. Mr. Kang sat on a crate, his B-rank ability humming beneath his skin. 3 others from Ren's client list arrived, people who owed favors. Ginny stood at the center, tablet in hand, coordinating. Ren stepped into the light, white mask on. He looked at his army. It was small, but it was his. Before they could plan their first move, the warehouse door opened again. A tall man in a decorated military uniform stepped in, one sleeve pinned empty at the shoulder. Commander Yu Han-sol. He looked at the gathering, then directly at Ren. "I know who you are. I know what you can do, and I know what the 8 pillars did to your mother. I want to help you destroy them." Ren's first instinct was distrust. The government had never helped anyone like him, but Hansel placed a file on the crate between them. Inside was a photo of a young woman in a bureau uniform, Haruka Kaito. "Your mother was a bureau agent. She worked with us against the pillars for 3 years. She was the best operative we ever had." Ren picked up the photo. His mother stared back at him, smiling. Ren agreed to the alliance on one condition: he would not hide, no safe houses, no witness protection. He would operate in the open. Hansel frowned but nodded. The Bureau would provide intel, resources, and a secure line. In exchange, Ren would forge Bureau agents when needed. They shook hands. For the first time, Ren had the weight of a government behind him. It felt almost as heavy as the target on his back. Ren woke in a white room, a Bureau medical facility. His body felt ancient. He tried to sit up and failed. Sarah was beside him, her face pale with worry. She held up a mirror. Ren barely recognized himself. His hair was more white than black now. Deep lines etched his face. A burn scar curled across his right cheek from the failed severance. He was 19. He looked 50. He stared at the mirror in silence. Commander Hansol visited that evening. He brought intel on the Reaper. His nullification field was anchored to a small device implanted in his spine. It had one weakness: if the anchor was disrupted, the field flickered for half a second before resetting. Ren studied the data, his tired eyes scanning the readouts. Half a second. That's all I need. He started planning. His hands moved slowly, but his mind was sharp. The fire hadn't gone out. As the meeting ended, a small figure appeared at the warehouse entrance. Sarah Yu stood there, her pink hair vibrant now, her lavender eyes bright with health. She walked straight past her father and hugged Ren. He stiffened. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything. I don't care who you are or what they call you. You saved my life. That's the only thing that matters." She pulled back and smiled. Ren felt something crack inside him. That night, Ren sat alone with his mother's journal. Ashen slept beside him, her head on his knee. He turned the pages slowly, looking for anything he had missed. Near the back, hidden between the binding, he found a folded slip of paper with a string of numbers, a code. He spent 3 hours deciphering it. The message read, "The power to sever lies in music. Go to the shop where the melodies never end." The music box shop was tucked in an old district Ren had never visited. A bell chimed as he entered. The owner was a blind old man who seemed to expect him. "You have her eyes," the old man said. He placed a small wooden music box on the counter. "Your mother left this here 17 years ago. She said her child would come for it one day." Ren opened the box. A delicate melody played, and inside a golden skill crystal glowed. Ren activated the crystal in the warehouse that night. Knowledge flooded his mind, the original forger technique. Skill severance. It was more than changing or creating skills. It was unmaking them at their root, the power to permanently strip anyone of their ability. Ren understood now why the pillars had feared his mother. She could end them one by one. He also understood the cost. The technique fed on the user's life force. Ren sat in silence for a long time. His mother had known the cost too. She had used severance once, stripping Pillar 9 of their power before they killed her. It had cost her everything. Ren looked at his reflection in a cracked window. Grey streaks in his hair, lines on his face. He was already paying the price. He clenched his fist. "She didn't finish the job. I will." Ren called everyone to the warehouse. Lena, Ginny, Ashen, Mr. Kang, Hansel, Sarah. He stood before them and told them everything. His mother, the severance technique, the cost. He laid it out without hiding. "I'm going to war against the 8 pillars. I'm going to kill them one by one or die trying. I won't ask you to fight, but if you want to, I'll forge you into weapons worthy of gods." The room was silent. Lena stepped forward first. "I owe you everything, my power, my life. I'm with you to the end." Mr. Kang nodded. "My daughter is alive because of you. I'll fight." Ginny sighed and rubbed her face. "I've been running from Kale my whole life. I'm tired of running. Count me in." Ashen simply moved closer to Ren and sat at his feet. She didn't need to speak. Hansel placed his hand on Ren's shoulder. "The Bureau will back you." Ren spent the next 3 days forging. He enhanced Lena's ice power to its theoretical limit. Her Hydro Dominion reached absolute zero core temperature, capable of freezing fire. He gave Mr. Kang a rapid regeneration factor to compensate for his age. He forged Ginny a spatial awareness skill. She could sense anyone within 100 meters. Each forge took more from him. By the 3rd day his hair was half grey. He looked 30. Ashen cornered him in the warehouse bathroom. He was splashing water on his face, avoiding his own reflection. She grabbed his wrist. "You're dying. Every forge takes years off your life." Ren pulled away. "I know." "Then stop. I can't. There are 7 pillars left. Each one will kill everyone I love if I don't stop them first." Ashen's eyes glistened. "Then I'm fighting beside you every step, till the end." Ren couldn't meet her eyes. The Reaper found them before they were ready. A fleet of black vans surrounded the warehouse at dawn. 50 enforcers in black suits poured out. At their center walked the Reaper himself, gaunt, skeletal, his scythe trailing shadows. He raised his hand. "Kill everyone inside. Leave the forger alive. I want to watch him break." The assault began. The warehouse doors exploded inward. Lena was the first to react. She threw her hands forward and the air screamed. A wave of absolute zero surged through the warehouse entrance. 10 enforcers turned to ice statues in an instant. Frost crawled across the walls, but the Reaper walked through untouched. His nullification field extended 10 meters in every direction. Within that radius, no skill worked. Lena's ice shattered. Her eyes widened. The Reaper smiled. Ren knew he had to use severance. He wasn't ready. He had never practiced it, but there was no choice. He focused his golden energy, reached for the technique his mother had left him. The power erupted from his palm, but it was wild, uncontrolled. Instead of striking the Reaper, it backlashed. Ren screamed as golden fire consumed his arm. He collapsed, smoke rising from his skin. The Reaper laughed. Ashen moved. She launched herself at the Reaper in a blur of grey fur and claws, her hybrid form faster, stronger. She raked her claws across his face, blood sprayed, but the Reaper grabbed her by the throat and slammed her into the ground. Ren tried to rise, vision swimming. Lena created a desperate blizzard, not to attack but to blind everyone retreat. She dragged Ren out as the ice wall collapsed behind them. The second confrontation was calculated. Ren baited the Reaper into an abandoned construction site, floors of metal grating, where the anchor signal might scatter. The Reaper followed, confident. Ren led him higher and higher. When they reached the top floor, Ren turned. The Reaper swung his scythe. Ren didn't dodge. He let the blade graze his side, buying the angle, and then he activated severance. The anchor flickered. The field dropped. Golden light pierced the Reaper's chest. The Reaper's scythe clattered to the ground. His nullification field died completely. His eyes, those hollow black pits, went wide with something they had never held before. Fear. Ren pushed through the agony, through the burning in his veins. The severance completed. The Reaper fell to his knees, his power gone, nothing but a gaunt old man in a tattered coat. Ren stood over him, breathing hard, blood dripping from his nose, 1 down, 7 to go. News travelled faster than light. The forger killed a pillar. The forger killed the Reaper. Networks that had dismissed Ren as an underground curiosity now treated him with terror and respect. The remaining 7 pillars convened in their dark chamber. For the first time in history, one of their seats stood empty. Pillar 1, the Sovereign, spoke. "Find the forger, not to kill, to recruit. If he cannot be recruited, eliminate everyone he loves, then kill him." Ren woke in the Bureau medical wing days later. Yu Hansol sat beside him, looking older than Ren remembered. "You did it." Wren's voice came out as a rasp. At what cost? Hansel paused. The pillars have called a convergence. All 7 will unite against you. But there's good news. Other factions are reaching out. People who were afraid of the pillars now see a crack in their armor. You gave the world hope. Wren stared at the ceiling. Hope? He wasn't sure he had any left. That evening, Wren stood at the window of the medical facility, looking out at the city lights. Ashen sat on the windowsill beside him, bandages wrapped around her torso where the Reaper had struck her. Lena leaned against the wall, ice crystals forming unconsciously in her breath. Ginny sat on the floor, scrolling through messages from new allies. Mr. Kang stood guard at the door. Sarah had brought flowers. Wren looked at them. His family, his army, his reason to keep fighting. Wren turned from the window. His reflection in the glass showed a stranger, white-streaked hair, scarred face, eyes that had seen too much, but the stranger was him. He smiled, not a happy smile, the smile of someone who had nothing left to lose and everything to fight for. "The forger is not one person," he said quietly. "The forger is an idea, and ideas don't die when you kill them." He picked up his white mask. The war against the 8 pillars had only just begun. The black van pulled up outside Wren's apartment at midnight. 3 men in suits stepped out, bureau enforcers, but not the kind who ask questions. Wren watched from his window, mask already in his hand. Ashen hissed at the door. Wren calculated his options. Front exit blocked, back alley was the only way. He grabbed his coat and moved. Wren slipped out the back fire escape, dropping into the alley, but the enforcers had anticipated that 2 of them waited in the shadows. They moved to grab him. Wren braced for a fight he could not win. Then a figure stepped between them. Small, hunched, wearing a beige cardigan. Grandma Hannah moved faster than anyone expected. She caught the first enforcer's wrist and twisted, bone cracked. The second swung at her. She ducked, swept his legs and drove her elbow into his jaw. 2 trained agents down in seconds. Wren stared. Hannah straightened her apron. "We need to talk," she said calmly. Lena sat in her academy dorm, staring at a map of the outer ring marked with forge locations. She had been tracking the patterns for weeks. The forges were becoming more frequent, more organized. She traced her finger along the map. Someone was building something. She grabbed her coat. She was going to find out who. Kale Dracos sat in his penthouse, reviewing a file on one of Wren's clients, a mid-tier merchant named Jung, who had received a forge 2 weeks ago. Kale smiled. Every forged client was a potential entry point. He sent an invitation. Jung arrived at Kale's office the next day, nervous and sweating. Wren and Ginny met in a cramped apartment that would become their new base of operations. Ginny had set up a secure communication system, burner phones, coded messages, dead drops. She had a list of potential clients pre-screened. Wren looked at the setup. It felt real for the first time. This was no longer a one-man operation. This was a network. In the back room of her store, Hannah made tea with steady hands. She told Wren about her past 30 years ago. She was known as the Burning Rose, an S-rank superhuman who fought in the Awakening Wars. She had retired to live a quiet life, but she still had connections, and she had been watching Wren. "I knew your mother," she said. "I've been waiting for you to come to me." Their first client under the new system was a firefighter named Park. His skill was heat resistance D rank, but it had been destabilizing, causing burns on his own skin. He was about to lose his job. Wren evaluated the risk. Low-rank forge, minimal cost. He touched Park's hand. The forge activated golden light. The skill stabilized and upgraded to Inferno Walker B rank. Park left in tears, thanking Wren profusely. Wren watched him go and checked his reflection in a window, a single new grey strand at his temple. 1 week of life. He touched it. Ginny watched from the doorway, her smirk absent for once. "You okay?" Wren forced a smile. Just another day at the office. Ginny didn't believe him, but she let it go. Kale offered Jung money, protection. The merchant refused, loyal to his anonymous benefactor. Kale's smile did not waver. He reached across the table and touched Jung's hand. "Debt bind activated. You owe me your loyalty now," Kale said softly. "Tell me everything about the forger." Jung's eyes glazed over. His resistance crumbled. Jung became Kale's eyes inside the Forge network. He reported meeting locations, client names, security routines. Kale compiled the information in a leather-bound journal, page by page. He did not strike yet. He was patient. He would wait until he had enough to take everything. Ren noticed something wrong. A client showed up late to a meet, sweating, answering questions evasively. Ginny flagged it too. "Something's off with Young," she said. Ren agreed, but they could not prove anything. He filed it away in his mind. Trust no one completely. The first rule of survival. Lena followed a lead to an abandoned textile factory, a known forge location. She moved silently through the dark corridors, ice crystals forming in her breath. She heard voices ahead. She crept closer. Through a gap in the door she saw a figure in a white mask standing over a kneeling client, golden light pulsing from his palm. Ren felt a presence before he saw her. His forge senses tingled. Someone with immense power was nearby. He finished the forge in seconds, grabbed his coat, and dove through a window. Lena burst through the door a moment later. The room was empty except for the dazed client. She ran to the window below. A figure in black disappeared into the alley shadows. Lena jumped down and searched the alley. Nothing, but on the ground she found a single black glove. She picked it up. It was still warm. She held it to her chest, feeling the residual energy. She had been this close. The forger was real, and he was human. She smiled. "I'm going to find you." She pocketed the glove. Ren stumbled into the safe house, breathing hard. Ginny took one look at him and grabbed his shoulders. "You were almost caught, I know. Lena was there. She's getting closer." Ginny's face darkened. "We need to change protocols. No more regular locations. Random drops only." Ren nodded. The game was changing. They had to change with it. Commander Yu Hansel sat by his daughter's bedside in the Bureau medical wing. Sarah was sleeping peacefully. Her colour healthy, her breathing steady. A week ago she had been at death's door. Now she was healed. Yu's hands trembled as he held hers. He did not know who the forger was, but he owed him everything. Sarah woke and smiled at her father. She told him everything, the masked stranger at her window, the golden light, the feeling of being remade from the inside out. "He saved me," she whispered. Yu's jaw tightened. He would find this forger, not to arrest him, to thank him, and to offer his service. Yu found Ren at the convenience store. He sat at the counter, ordered coffee, and studied the young man with tired eyes. Ren avoided eye contact. Yu spoke about the forger, how he had saved someone precious to him. "If you ever meet the forger, tell him he has a friend in the bureau." Ren said nothing. His heart pounded. After Yu left, Ren leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. Grandma Hannah appeared beside him. "That man knows more than he's letting on." Ren nodded. "They're all getting closer. The net is tightening." Hannah placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then you'd better move faster than them." Ren looked at his palm. The mark glowed faintly. "Time to work." Wei Yuna Pillar 2, the mirror stood before the remaining 7 pillars in their dark chamber. She was tall, androgynous, her skin shimmering like liquid mercury. She had heard of the forger, a skilled manipulator. The ability to create superhumans at will. She smiled. She wanted that power, not to destroy it, to copy it. The mirror demonstrated her ability before the pillars. A captured rank criminal was brought in. She studied him for 3 seconds. Then she raised her hand and replicated his skill perfectly. The same energy signature, the same effect. The pillars watched in silence. If she could copy the forge, she would be unstoppable. The mirror requested permission to hunt the forger. The sovereign granted it. She left the chamber and stood on the balcony overlooking the city. Her reflective skin caught the moonlight. She whispered to herself, "I will find you, forger. I will copy everything you are, and then I will become the only one who matters." News reached Ginny through her underworld contacts. A pillar is moving the mirror. She's hunting you specifically. Ren received the information in silence. Another threat, another target on his back, but this one could copy his power. That was terrifying. He looked at Ashen sleeping in the corner. He would not let anyone take this power, not while he still breathed. The new client was a young man named Min Jun. He had a D-rank combat skill that was barely enough to qualify for low-tier hunter work. He wanted more. Ren hesitated. The request was simple, but something about the client's eyes made him uneasy. Ginny had vetted him, though. Ren proceeded. He touched Min Jun's hand and the forge was a mutation. Min Jun's skill transformed into something aggressive. Blade Rush, a rank, a combat skill that enhanced his speed and generated razor-sharp energy blades from his arms. Min Jun's eyes widened with manic glee. Ren felt a chill, that look, he had seen it before. The look of someone who had just been given a weapon. 3 days later the news broke. A robbery at a high-end jewelry store. 3 guards injured. The perpetrator was caught on camera. Energy blades extending from his forearms. Min Jun. Ren stared at the screen in horror. Ginny stood beside him, pale. "We created a monster," Ren whispered. "No, I created a monster." Ren sat alone that night, the weight of his choice crushing him. He had given power to someone unworthy. He had not vetted deeply enough. Ashen climbed onto his lap and pressed her head against his chest. Ren stared at the ceiling. He had to fix this. He had to find Min Jun, and he had to take back what he had given. Ren tracked Min Jun to an abandoned subway station. He went alone, despite Ginny's protests. Ashen followed, slipping through shadows. They found Min Jun in a makeshift camp, energy blades flickering around his arms. He was high on his new power when he saw the white mask. He grinned. "Come to take it back, Forger. Try." Min Jun attacked wildly. His blades were fast, dangerous. Ren dodged, relying on his forged reflexes. Ashen phased through a blade and scratched Min Jun's face, but Min Jun was stronger, faster. He pinned Ren against a pillar, blade at his throat. "You made me powerful. Now you're afraid of what you created. Pathetic." Ren focused. He had never used severance on a person before, only on the Reaper's anchor. But he knew the technique. He grabbed Min Jun's arm, the one touching his throat. Golden light flared. The severance tore through Min Jun's skill, unraveling it strand by strand. Min Jun screamed as Blade Rush disintegrated into golden motes. Min Jun collapsed, his skill gone, tears streaming down his face. Ren stood over him, breathing hard. Grey hair now streaked through his temples. He had undone his work. He had taken responsibility, but the cost was etched into his face. He looked at his trembling hands. How many more times would he have to do this before the end? A man appeared at Ginny's safe house. He was gaunt, in his 50s, with a persistent cough and wire-rimmed glasses. He knocked once. Ginny opened the door. Her face went white. "Hello, Suha," he said. "It's been a long time." Her hands began to shake. His name was Mr. Choi. He was Ginny's old handler from the streets, the man who had bought her from her parents and run her pickpocketing ring. He knew her real name, he knew her history, and he knew she was working with the forger. "The underground talks," he said. "You've been busy, but I'm not here to congratulate you." Choi had a buyer for the forger's identity, Kale Dracos. He wanted Ginny to deliver Ren his name, his face, his location. In exchange, Choi would erase her debt and disappear. Ginny stared at him. Her past had come back to collect. She had 48 hours to decide. Ginny sat on her rooftop that night, staring at the city lights. A silver coin flipped between her fingers. Betray Ren and be free, or protect him and be hunted forever. She looked at the scar on her palm from the forge. Ren had given her a second chance. He trusted her. She made her choice. Ginny started pulling away. She showed up late to meets. She avoided Ren's eyes. She made excuses. Ren noticed. He asked if she was okay. She snapped at him. "I'm fine. Stop asking." Ren backed off, but he knew something was wrong. He just didn't know what. Ren cornered her in the safe house. "Ginny, talk to me. Whatever it is, we can handle it together." Ginny's walls cracked for a second. Then she hardened again. "You can't handle this one, Ren. This one's mine." She walked out. Ren watched her go, helpless. Lena's investigation advanced. She interviewed a witness who had seen the forger's face during a brief moment. Just the lower half, young, maybe early 20s, Korean. She narrowed down the search. Outer ring, convenience stores, warehouses, cheap apartments. She was getting closer to Ren without knowing it. Multiple threats converge. The mirror hunting, Kale plotting, Ginny withdrawing, Lena closing in. Ren sat in his apartment, head in his hands, ashen pressed against his leg. He felt the walls closing in. He was the forger. He had created superhumans, but he had never felt more powerless. Kale set his trap. He spread word of a high-value client, a dying heir with a SSS rank inheritance skill on the verge of collapse, the kind of client Ren could not resist. Ginny's vetting came back clean because Kale had fabricated the entire background. Ren took the bait. Ren arrived at the meeting location alone, a penthouse in the central district. The client was supposed to be there, but the room was empty. He sensed the trap a second too late. The doors locked. Gas filled the room. Ren's vision blurred. Ashen screeched, then darkness. Ren woke in a luxurious bedroom. Silk sheets, soft lighting. His wrists were bound with silver restraints, anti-skill cuffs. A figure sat in an armchair across the room, swirling a glass of whiskey. Kale Dracos smiled. "Good evening, forger. Or should I say Ren Kaito?" Ren's blood ran cold. Kale approached the bed, studying Ren like a curious collector examining a rare artifact. "I've been watching you for months. Your network, your clients, your little cat. I know everything." Ren pulled against the cuffs. Useless. Kale sat on the edge of the bed. "Let's talk about your future. You're going to work for me now." Kale laid out his terms. Ren would forge for him exclusively. He would live in this penthouse, safe and comfortable. In exchange, Kale would protect everyone. Ren cared about Lena, Ginny, Sarah, Hannah. Ren laughed bitterly. "You mean you'll threaten them if I refuse?" Kale's smile widened. "I prefer the term incentivize." Kale showed Ren photographs. Lena walking to class, Sarah in the hospital garden, Ginny on her rooftop, Grandma Hannah behind her counter. "I can reach any of them within an hour," Kale said. Ren's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to kill Kale, but he was helpless. He had no combat skill. He was just a boy in a mask. Ren pretended to agree. He needed time. He needed to find a way out. Kale was not fooled. He knew Ren was stalling, but he allowed it. He enjoyed the game. "The cat and the mouse. I'll prepare your first forge tomorrow," Kale said. "A special client. Do try to make it impressive." He left Ren alone in the room. Ren examined the restraints, the room, the windows. 38th floor, anti-skill cuffs, guards at every door. Ashen was nowhere to be seen. She must have escaped the gas. Good. She could bring help. But would she arrive in time? Ren tested the cuffs. They glowed. He was trapped. He had to think. Kale's client arrived the next morning. A massive man named Gorath, an underworld enforcer with a B-rank skill. Kale wanted him upgraded to S rank. Ren was brought to the forge room, wrists still cuffed. The restraints were removed one at a time, strictly monitored. Gorath sneered at the thin boy before him. Ren touched Gorath's arm. The forge energy rose, but instead of channeling upgrade, Ren focused on something else. Destruction! He had done it before. He could do it again. He pushed the golden energy in the opposite direction, unmaking instead of creating. Gorath grunted. Something was wrong. Golden light exploded. Gorath's skill, stone, hide B rank, shattered like glass. The energy dispersed. Gorath collapsed, his body limp, his power gone. Kale's eyes went wide. "What did you do?" Ren stepped back, breathing hard. "I destroyed it." "That's what you get for forcing a forge. The result is always random." The room went silent. Kale's composure cracked for the first time. His face twisted with rage. He grabbed Ren by the throat and slammed him against the wall. "You think this is a game? I can make your life a living hell." Ren choked but smiled. "You need me alive. That's your weakness." Kale released him slowly. His smile returned. "Fine, we'll do this differently." Kale brought Ren back to his private study. He needed to regain control. He poured himself a drink, back turned. Ren saw his chance. The restraints were off. Kale was distracted. He moved silently, picked up a heavy paperweight, and struck Kale across the back of the head. Kale crumpled. Ren stood over Kale's unconscious body. He could run, but that would not solve anything. Kale would wake up and come after him again. Ren looked at his palm. The gear and scale mark glowed. He touched Kale's hand. "If I destroy your skill, your contracts dissolve. Your power over people ends." He concentrated. Destruction energy surged. Kale's debt bind A rank unraveled in golden threads. The skill that had enslaved hundreds dissolved into nothing. Across the city, people felt something snap. Invisible chains breaking. Kale's eyes fluttered open. He looked at his hands. He knew immediately what had happened. His skill, his empire, gone. He stared at Ren in disbelief. Ren expected rage. Instead, Kale smiled, a terrible empty smile. "Now I have nothing to lose," he said softly. "That makes me very dangerous." Ren stepped back. Kale sat up, rubbing his head. "You took everything from me, my power, my contracts, my identity. All I have left is your face, and I will remember it forever." Ren fled. Ren stumbled through the streets, disoriented, exhausted. He had escaped. He had taken down Kale, but Kale knew his face. The secret was no longer safe. He found a dark alley and collapsed against the wall, sliding down to sit on the wet ground. Ashen appeared from the shadows, rubbing against his leg. She had followed him. Ginny found him hours later. She had tracked Ashen's signal. She knelt beside him, checking for injuries. He told her everything. Kale, the forge, the destruction, and the fact that Kale knows my face. Ginny went pale. She grabbed his shoulders. "I have something to tell you too," she confessed about Mr. Choi, and her choice. Ginny told him she had refused Choi. She had chosen Ren, but that meant Choi would sell her out to Kale anyway. Ren listened in silence. Then he pulled her into a hug. "You stayed. That's all that matters. We'll face them together." Ginny's eyes welled up. She had not been hugged in years. She let herself cry. Lena sat in her dorm, holding the black glove she had found. She had analyzed it for residues. Nothing, but she kept it. It was proof that the forger existed, that he was close. She pressed the glove to her face, inhaling. Something about it felt familiar, like a scent she had encountered before. She could not place it, but it lingered. The mirror found Ren's trail through a client who had been forged 2 weeks ago. She tracked the residual energy to a warehouse in the industrial district. She arrived at midnight, her reflective skin blending with the shadows. She could feel him. He was close. Ren was mid-forge when the wall exploded inward. A figure stepped through the dust, shimmering, silver, impossible, the mirror. She raised her hand and copied Lena's ice power, launching a wave of absolute zero at Ren. He dove behind a pillar. Ice covered everything. Ashen yowled. The mirror smiled. "So this is the forger. Disappointing." Ren fought back with everything he had. Forged reflexes, a smoke grenade Ginny had given him, Ashen's shadow attacks. But the mirror copied each skill as it appeared. She was untouchable. He barely escaped. A deep gash across his arm, blood soaking his sleeve. The mirror watched him flee. She did not pursue. She had what she needed, a sample of his energy signature. The team gathered at the safe house. Ren's arm was bandaged, his face pale. Lena's power was compromised. The mirror could now copy it. Yu reviewed tactical options. Ginny scanned for safe locations. Ren stared at the map. The mirror had his signature. She could track him now. Every forge would be a beacon. He had to stop forging, but the clients kept coming. Ren stood before a cracked mirror in the safe house bathroom. He barely recognized himself. His hair was more grey than black now. Deep lines etched his forehead. The burn scar on his cheek had darkened. He was 19. He looked 40. He touched his reflection. The man in the mirror stared back, tired and ancient. Sarah came to the safe house to treat Ren's wounds. As her healing energy flowed through him, she paused. Her eyes widened. Ren, your life force is thin, depleted, like someone who has lived decades longer than you have. Ren pulled his arm away. I know, Sarah's voice trembled. How many years have you given? Ren did not answer. Sarah sat beside Ren on the worn couch. She did not push, she waited. Finally, Ren spoke. Every forge costs me. A day, a week, a month, sometimes years, I've lost count. Sarah took his hand. I can heal wounds, I can cure diseases, but I cannot restore spent life. Ren looked at her. I know, I've always known. Sarah began to cry, silently. You saved my life, Ren, and you're dying to save others. How is that fair? Ren squeezed her hand. It's not fair, but it's my choice. Every person I forge is someone who can make a difference. Lena protects people. You heal them. Ginny finds the truth. If my life buys theirs, then it's worth it. Sarah could not argue. Commander Yu arrived at the safe house. He looked at Ren, really looked at him. Then he spoke the words Ren had been dreading. I know you're the forger. Ren tensed. Yu held up a hand. I'm not here to arrest you. I'm here to thank you for my daughter. He extended his hand. You have an ally in the Bureau for as long as I draw breath. Yu brought resources, our Bureau safe houses, encrypted communication channels, forged documents for new identities. He also brought intel. The pillars were mobilizing. The Mirror had reported Ren's general location. Kale had gone underground, but was selling information about Ren. The net was tightening, but now they had a government insider. Mr. Kang arrived, accompanied by 3 other forged individuals, people Ren had saved. They came to fight. Lena stood beside them, her ice power crackling. Ginny was on the comms, coordinating. Sarah prepared medical supplies. Ashen sat at Ren's feet. Ren looked at his army. It was small, but it was fierce. It was his. They planned their next move. The Mirror was the immediate threat. She had Ren's energy signature and could track him. They needed to sever her connection or eliminate her. Ren studied the pillar files Yu had provided. The Mirror's power had one weakness. She could only copy skills she had seen. They needed to hit her with something she had never encountered. Ren set the trap. He announced a forge, a high-power client that would draw the Mirror in. The location was a decommissioned power plant chosen for its chaotic energy fields that might disrupt her copying ability. Ginny planted false leads. Yu positioned Bureau snipers. Lena waited in ambush. Ashen shadowed the perimeter. The stage was set. The Mirror arrived exactly as predicted. She walked through the power plant doors, unhurried, confident. Her reflective skin shimmered in the dim light. She sensed the trap immediately. She smiled. Clever, but I did not come alone. She raised her hand. Outside, pillar enforcers surrounded the building. The battle erupted. Lena engaged the Mirror directly, ice versus ice. Yu coordinated from the perimeter, directing sniper fire. Ginny hacked the building's systems, causing chaos. Mr. Kang and the forged allies held off the enforcers. Ren moved through the chaos, searching for an opening. Ashen provided cover, phasing through attacks. Ren found his moment. The Mirror was distracted by Lena. He moved behind her, gear and scale mark blazing. He touched her shoulder and activated Severance, but instead of destroying her skill, he mutated it. The Mirror's copying ability warped, twisting into something unrecognizable. She screamed as her power shifted beyond her control. They had not killed her, but they had stopped her. The pillar enforcers retreated, their leader compromised. The Mirror stumbled away, her power unstable, flickering. She looked at Ren with something between hatred and respect. This is not over, Forger. I will find a way to restore my power, and when I do, I will end everyone you love. She vanished into the night. Ren collapsed the moment she was gone. The Severance mutation had cost him more than he expected. He looked at his hands. They were trembling, aged, thin. Sarah rushed to his side, healing energy flowing, but she could feel it. He had lost years in that single touch. Ren looked at his reflection in a broken window. His hair was almost fully white now. The team gathered at the safe house, exhausted, wounded, but alive. Lena sat beside Ren, ice crystals still forming in her breath. "You're dying," she said quietly. "I know. Every time I use the power, I lose more of myself." Lena was silent for a long time. Then she took his hand. "Then we make every day count." Ren stood at the window, looking out at the city. Dawn was breaking. Ashen sat on the windowsill beside him. Lena stood at his shoulder. Ginny was on the phone, planning their next move. Sarah was bandaging Mr. Kang's arm. Yu was reviewing intel. Ren felt the weight of his choices, his debt, his body, his life, but he also felt something else, hope. He looked at the rising sun. One day this war would end, but not today. He put on his mask. Today they fought. Deep beneath the capital, the remaining pillars gathered in their dark chamber. 3 seats stood empty now, the reapers, the mirrors, and the 9th seat empty for 20 years, that no one dared to mention. The sovereign rose. His voice was quiet, and the room obeyed it. "The forger has unmade 2 of us. There will be no recruitment, no mercy. I declare convergence. Every pillar, every enforcer. One hunt, one prey." The next morning the world met its favourite hero, Seraph Pillar 6. The smiling angel of the capital descended onto a live broadcast stage on 6 wings of golden light. Children cheered, cameras flashed. Then his smile faded and he spoke of a terrorist who twisted human souls in back alleys, a monster called the Forger. By nightfall the bounty was the largest in history, and the whole world was watching for a boy in a white mask. The team watched the broadcast in the safe house, the light of the screen flickering across tired faces. Ginny turned up the volume. Lena's fists frosted over. Commander Yu said nothing for a long time. Then he spoke. "The Bureau Council is caving. They will demand your head to save their own." Ren stared at the sketch of his mask on the screen. The world he had saved piece by piece was being taught to hate him. In a basement office that smelled of dust and old money, Kale Dracos received a guest. Mr. Choi slid a folder across the table. Everything on Jin Soha, and through her everything on the Forger's network. Kale paid without counting. After Choi left, Kale sat alone with the folder and a photograph of a young man's face, Ren Kaito, the boy who had taken everything from him. He struck a match and watched it burn down to his fingers. Not yet. First, the world would know the name. Lena spread her evidence across her dorm room floor, the black glove, the witness sketches, the map of forge sites, and a new thread she could not let go. Every forge happened on a night the quiet boy from the convenience store was not working. She stared at the work schedule she had copied from the store's back wall. Her breath came out as frost. It could not be him. It could not be. That night Lena followed Ren from the store. He moved like someone who had learned to disappear, doubling back, cutting through alleys. She tracked him from the rooftops, silent as falling snow, hating herself with every step. He stopped at a shuttered laundromat in the outer ring. A woman was waiting inside, clutching a sick child. Lena watched through the skylight as Ren pulled a white mask from his coat. Golden light filled the laundromat. The child's broken skill reformed into something warm and bright, and the mother wept into Ren's shoulder. On the rooftop Lena did not move, the glove in her pocket, the coffee at the counter, all the nights she had told him about the forger, and the way he had smiled and said nothing. When Ren stepped out into the alley, the temperature dropped 40 degrees. Lena stood in the frost, eyes glowing pale blue. "Take off the mask, Ren." He took it off. For a long moment neither of them spoke. Then Lena's voice cracked. "I told you everything. I told you I was hunting him. I sat at your counter and you let me talk to your face about finding you." Ren reached toward her. The air froze so hard it burned. "Do not," she said. She turned and the frost swallowed her footsteps. Ashen found Ren an hour later, still standing in the alley, holding the mask like something dead. Lena walked the frozen river until dawn. She thought of the warehouse, the weakest skill in the world, the masked stranger who had rebuilt her from nothing and vanished without taking a single thing in return. She thought of a boy at a counter who always remembered how she took her coffee. At sunrise she came back. Ren was still there. She hit him once, hard in the chest. Then she pulled him into a hug that cracked his ribs. Never lie to me again. Never." The order came down at noon. Commander Yu Hansel was to deliver the forger's identity to the council within 72 hours, or face charges of treason. Yu stood before the council in his decorated coat, one sleeve pinned and empty. He thought of his daughter alive because a stranger had paid with his own life to save her. He unpinned his medals one by one and laid them on the table. "Then you had better charge me." He walked out. 14 loyal agents walked out with him. Kale Drakos sold the world a face, every network, every feed, every screen in the city at once. Ren Kaito, 19 years old, convenience store clerk. The forger by morning. His apartment was behind police tape, and strangers stood outside Hannah's store taking photographs. Ren watched his own life end on a borrowed phone in a bureau van. Ginny put a hand on his shoulder. Breathe. He could not remember how. They moved him under the city through maintenance tunnels. Ginny knew by heart. A bureau black site, scrubbed from every record, became home. Concrete walls, cots, a single window of grey sky. Sarah set up an infirmary. Mr. Kang checked the locks twice, then a third time. Ashen prowled the perimeter in cat form, refusing to sleep. Ren sat in the corner and understood fully and finally that there was no going back to the counter and the coffee and the quiet. Pillar 5 entered the city on a Sunday. The choir, a blind old woman in a black concert gown who had not spoken in 30 years, because she did not need to. That evening 10,000 people in the Eastern District stopped what they were doing, stood up at the same moment, and began to walk in perfect formation, singing a song with no words. They gathered in the great plaza and stood in silence, swaying. The message needed no translation: surrender, forger, or I will walk this city into the sea. Far above the city, in a tower of glass and gold, the sovereign stood alone before an old photograph, a woman with a white streak in her dark hair, laughing, one hand resting on the shoulder of a plain, gentle man in an archivist's uniform. Golden text scrolled softly across the sovereign's eyes as he studied the woman's face. Then his fingers touched the glass, and for a moment they trembled. Somewhere very deep under the gold, something screamed. The system adjusted. The trembling stopped. Sarah examined Ren in the infirmary, her healing light moving slowly over his chest. Her hand stopped. "Ren, how many forges since the power plant?" He did not answer. Her voice went thin. "Your life force is not a candle anymore. It is a match." "Months, Ren. Maybe less." Ashen's ears flattened against her skull. Lena stood in the doorway very still. Ren buttoned his shirt and smiled at no one. "Then we had better not waste any." That night, Ren stood before the team with the city map spread out between them. "The choir holds 10,000 hostages in the plaza. Seraph owns every screen in the world. The sovereign has declared convergence, and the bureau wants my head on a table." He looked up. "So we stop hiding. They made the whole world watch." "Good." He put on the white mask. "Let them watch." Ginny cracked the pattern in a single sleepless night. The choir's song rode beneath the city's own noise, in the public speakers, the train chimes, the phones. Anyone who heard it belonged to her. Mr. Kang rigged jammers from bureau parts. Lena could seal the streets with walls of ice, cutting the crowd into safe islands, and Ashen heard the song differently, the way animals hear a storm coming close enough to hunt the source. Ren traced the plaza on the map. "Then we go where the music is loudest." The plaza at midnight was the most beautiful and terrible thing Ren had ever seen. 10,000 people swaying in silence under the floodlights, eyes closed, faces peaceful office workers, students, children on their fathers' shoulders. At the center, on the rim of the empty fountain, sat the choir, baton raised, conducting a city as if it were an orchestra. Every one of them was a hostage. Every one of them was a weapon. She turned her blind eyes toward Ren and smiled. The song crashed down on them like a wave. Kang's jammers brought pockets of silence that collapsed one by one. Lena's ice walls rose, carving the crowd into islands, keeping the sleepers from crushing each other as they surged. 100 sleepwalkers turned toward Ren with gentle faces and reaching hands. He could not hurt them. He would not. Ashen dove into the forest of bodies, grey and quick, phasing through grasping arms with the last jammer strapped to her back. Ashen planted the jammer on the fountain's rim, and for 3 seconds the plaza went deaf. Ren crossed the gap, The choir rose, furious, and sang directly into him, the full weight of 10,000 borrowed voices aimed at one exhausted boy. The song hit the golden mark on his palm and shattered, unclassifiable. Her blind eyes went wide. Ren caught her baton hand. "I am not in your sheet music, golden light." He did not destroy her, he rewrote her. The stolen chorus unravelled voice by voice, 10,000 threads flowing back to their owners until only one voice remained. Her own, a thin human voice, rusty from 30 years of silence. The choir collapsed against the fountain, clutching her throat, singing one small note over and over like a child discovering it. Around the plaza, 10,000 people woke up crying and did not know why. Ren limped away before the cameras found him. His hair was one shade whiter. The footage went everywhere. The terrorist in the white mask, standing in a plaza of sleeping hostages, freeing every single one and taking nothing. The comment feeds turned into battlefields. Seraph watched his approval numbers dip for the first time in his life, and something ugly moved behind the perfect smile. That evening he descended onto the stadium stage on wings of gold and issued his challenge to 100 million viewers. "Forger, face me where everyone can see, or I will find your friends first." "We are not walking into a stage trap without a script of our own," Ginny said. "She and you pulled every thread on Pillar 6. It took 2 days to find the seam. Seraph's blessing tours. Cities wept with joy when he passed. And for weeks afterward, hospital admissions spiked, chronic fatigue, depression, failed awakenings in children. His wings did not run on light, they ran on people. Worship was the harvest. Ginny leaned back and smiled at the ceiling. Oh, we are going to end him. The stadium was full beyond capacity. The night sky carved by searchlights. Seraph floated above the stage, 6 wings blazing, feeding on 80,000 chanting voices. Then the chanting faltered. A small figure walked out of the players' tunnel, alone, no army, no ice queen, just a thin young man with white-streaked hair and a burn-scarred cheek, carrying a white mask in one hand. Ren Kaito had come as himself. He looked up at the golden god and put the mask on. The first light lance tore the ground where Ren had stood a heartbeat before. Then another. Another. Seraph was laughing, playing to the crowd, herding the forger across the arena like a cat with a wounded bird. Ren's forged reflexes read every strike half a second early, and the half second was barely enough. A lance grazed his shoulder and set the sleeve burning. The crowd roared. He is a performer, Ren realized, rolling behind a barrier, breath ragged. So changed the show. Grandma Hannah held the reconstructed photograph, and her hands, steady through wars, shook. "June?" She said the name like an apology. "Haruka made me promise to hide you both. I hid you. I watched you grow up 2 streets from my counter, but June disappeared the night she died, and I told myself he was dead because the other possibility was worse." She looked up at Ren, eyes wet, spine straight. "I broke half my promise. I will not break the rest. Whatever you march on, I march with you." The message arrived on Ginny's encrypted line from a dead man's #1 address, the old broadcast spire in the harbour, decommissioned since the Awakening Wars. Beneath it, the place where the system first spoke to the world. The price was written at the bottom in Cale's elegant hand. No money, no binding. "I will be watching Forger. I want to see God bleed. You studied the address for a long time. It is a trap," he said. Ren nodded. "It is also true. We go." The Sovereign did not wait for them to come. At 3 in the morning, every safe house on Ginny's network lit up with breach alarms at once. Pillar 4, the mountain, walked through the river district wall by wall, a giant of living stone shrugging off artillery. Pillar 7, the architect folded whole streets into impossible loops that swallowed patrols whole. Pillar 8, the tempest unmade the sky. The purge night had begun, and the black site's door rang like a bell under the first fist of stone. Pillar 7 caught them in the harbour district, folding 4 blocks into a loop with no exits, corridors that ate the people who walked them. Panic bloomed. Then Wei Yuna stepped forward and let her cracked skin catch the folded light. The maze reflected in her, and in the reflection it was just lines, and the lines had an author, and the author had a location there, she said. Kang's team hit the anchor point with everything they had. The loop tore open. Ren was waiting on the other side, palm burning gold. The architect had never once been touched in his life, and it showed one grip, one severance, 5 pillars down. Pillar 8 came for them over the water, a hurricane wearing the shape of a man. The evacuation boats were still loading. Lena walked out onto the harbour alone, and the sea began to harden behind her heels. What followed entered legend. The storm threw the ocean at her, and she froze the ocean. He threw lightning, and she raised mirrors of ice that returned it to sender. The temperature fell and fell until the rain hung motionless in the air like beads of glass, and inside that stillness the Ice Queen walked up a staircase of frozen wind and put the tempest to sleep in a cathedral of frost. When she came back down, the boats were safe. She was smiling. Every screen in the stadium flickered at once. Ginny's voice, calm and clear, filled the arena. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight's real program. Hospital records scrolled 10 meters tall, faces of exhausted children. Vitality scans before and after blessing tours, side by side. The chanting died. Seraph screamed and hurled a sun into the stands where the screens fed from. Ice met light. Lena stood revealed on the stadium rim, arms spread, holding a frozen dome over 3,000 people, her white hair whipping in the pressure wind. The crowd saw a pillar burn its own audience, and they saw an ally of the forgers save them. Seraph came down at Ren with everything he had left, 6 wings folded into a spear of light. No performance now, just murder. Ren stood his ground, counting the half-seconds, and at the last one he stepped inside the dive and caught Seraph's ankle. Golden light met golden light. The severance ripped through the harvest engine at its root, and 6 wings tore away into motes like burning feathers. Pillar 6 hit the stage as an ordinary man, beautiful and empty, and stayed down, sobbing. Ren stood over him, swaying, and looked into the nearest camera. "Ranks are cages. I'm here to break them." They buried her at dawn beside the small grave Ren had stood at alone when he was 16, 2 graves now. The rain was fine and grey, and it hissed softly where it touched the glass roses they had carried from the crater. Sarah held the folded cardigan. Kang stood at attention the whole time, an old soldier saying goodbye to an older one. Lena's frost fell around them as gentle snow. Nobody spoke. What was there to say? The kindest person Ren had ever known had traded herself for a doorway. He collapsed before he reached the tunnel. Sarah worked on him for 3 hours, her light trembling. When he woke, the room was dark, and Lena was asleep in the chair beside his cot. Her fingers laced through his frost patterns, blooming gently on the blanket where her breath fell. His hair in the window's reflection was more white than black now. "Weeks," Sarah had said quietly to the wall when she thought he could not hear. He watched Lena sleep and made every one of those weeks a promise. The sovereign's answer came without armies. He walked alone into the Bureau's central command, past every gun and every ward, and spoke one word. Kneel. 300 trained agents knelt, not compelled but rewritten, their bodies obeying a grammar older than their wills. He stepped over them to the council table and laid down a single sheet of gold. The city watched the footage in absolute silence. Nobody fights a sentence. Nobody argues with the period at the end of the world. The knock on the black site's door was soft. Wei Yuna stood in the rain, and the team almost did not recognize her. The mirror skin was cracked now, veined like broken porcelain, and through the cracks looked out something tired and human. "I did not come to fight," she said. "Everything I ever copied is gone. What is left of me only shows the truth." She looked at Ren, "And you deserve to see one." She held out her hand, and her palm became a memory. They saw it together, reflected in her broken skin. The pillar's chamber 20 years ago, a thin, gentle man in an archivist's uniform, kneeling over a woman's body, screaming at machines of golden text descending through the ceiling. Haruka Kaito lay still. The golden text poured into the screaming man like water into an empty jar. When he stood up, his grief was gone, and his eyes scrolled with light. Ashen caught Ren as his legs went out from under him. The sovereign had his father's face. Jun Kaito, Ren said the name out loud for the first time in his life. His mother's journal had never written it, and now he understood why she had hidden them both. The love of a man she could not protect. The system had taken the emptiest vessel grief could carve and worn his father as a crown for 20 years. Ren sat with the journal all night. He did not cry. He read her last line over and over. Forge your own path. Do not become them at dawn. He closed the book. I am going to bring him home, or bury him. Out, everyone, out now. Use loyalists hauled equipment and wounded into the tunnels while the walls wept dust. The mountain's silhouette filled the loading dock, stone grinding on stone. Grandma Hannah set down the box of medical supplies she was carrying, took off her cardigan, folded it neatly, and handed it to Sarah. "Hold this for me, dear." She rolled up her sleeves as she walked toward the dock. The air around her began to smell of summer roses, and then it began to burn. The world learned that night why they had called her the Burning Rose. Fire took her like a memory, petals of flame unfolding from her shoulders. Her white bun a wick of gold, the mountain swung a fist that could crack bridges. She met it barehanded, and the stone screamed. She was 70 years old, and she fought like a garden in a hurricane. Beautiful, slow everywhere, petal by petal, she peeled his stone away, and when his molten core stood exposed, she embraced it like an old friend. They found her in the crater when the light died, lying in a ring of glass roses. The mountain reduced to a hill of cooling slag around her. Ren fell to his knees beside her. Her white hair was ash. Her eyes were calm. She reached up and touched the tears on his face with a burned hand. "You look just like your mother when you cry," she whispered. "Don't. Live." Her hand fell. The first hero of the awakening wars was gone, and the boy she had guarded for 3 years screamed into the smoke. Ren stopped sleeping after that. He planned, he trained, he burned through his last weeks like a man spending someone else's money. Ashen cornered him in the tunnel mouth on the 4th night. "You should be dead already," she said quietly. "You know that. The backlash, the severances, the math does not work." Ren. He went very still. She held up her hand, and a thin golden thread glimmered between her palm and his chest. "You saved a dying stray in an alley. The forge tied us. I have been paying you my years every day for 3 years. Did you never wonder why a cat became a girl and kept aging?" "No." Ren's voice came out raw. He clawed at the golden thread and could not touch it. "Take it back. I never asked." "You never ask," Ashen snapped, ears flat, eyes wet and furious. "That is the whole problem with you. You bleed for 10,000 strangers, and you will not take one drop from family." She stood nose to nose with him, a stray facing down a storm. "I was dying in the garbage, and you knelt down in the snow. You do not get to teach me that love only goes one direction." Ren turned away. For 2 days they did not speak, and both of them broke a little more each hour. Mr. Choi picked the wrong week to collect. He appeared at the tunnel gate with pillar credentials and a smile, offering to forget Ginny's location fee if she delivered the team's escape route. She met him alone in a noodle shop, hands steady. She slid a phone across the table, already playing a recording. His own voice, listing every child he had bought and sold in 20 years. Names, prices, buyers. Copies had already reached 6 syndicate bosses whose children were on that list. Choi's face went the color of dishwater. "Run," Ginny said, eating her noodles. "It will not help." It did not. She burned her old ID card in the alley outside and finally stopped, looking over her shoulder. Only one pillar remained. So the system stopped playing by human rules. At noon, the sovereign's voice came out of every speaker, every phone, every child's toy that could sing all at once and very gently. "Citizens, all who shelter the criminal Ren Kaito are removed from the ledger, effective now." Across the city, skills simply stopped. Healers went dark mid-surgery. Rescue workers' abilities died mid-climb. The lights of the awakened world browned out, and the fear turned, exactly as designed, toward one white mask. The system did not need to defeat them. It only needed to build the world for their courage. "You cannot sever him like the others," Wei Yuna said in the tunnel dark, and they gathered close around her cracked light. "I copied the sovereign once for 3 seconds years ago. It nearly ended me." She looked up. There is no skill in that body to destroy. There is no man in that body to save. Not the way you hope. There is a door in that body. The system keeps it open and wears what is left of the doorman. She turned her palm and showed them a reflection of golden text, endless and patient. Kill the body, and the door just opens somewhere else. You have to close the ledger itself. The blind shopkeeper did not look surprised when Ren pushed open the door with the little melodies still playing. "You have her eyes," he said again, and set the music box on the counter without being asked. Under its winding drum, folded down to nothing, was the last page of his mother's journal. The page she had torn out herself. Ren read it once, in silence. "The system has a root. The first entry, under the spire where it first awoke and first ranked a human soul, severance at the root ends the ledger for good, and beneath that, in a shaking hand, the price is everything the forger has, and everything the forger is." Ren did not tell them what the page said. He told them the plan, the route, the timing, and let them believe the price was the usual price. Then he spent one day writing letters he hid inside his coat. Sarah found him anyway, the way healers find wounds. She read his life force in silence, and her eyes filled, and she did not argue with him. That frightened him more than anything had all year. She pressed a small vial into his palm. "For the pain," she said at the end. Then she hugged him the way she had hugged him as a saved little girl, and neither of them let go for a long time. Lena took him up to the roof at midnight because she said he owed her 1 normal hour. They drank cheap coffee from the machine 2 floors down. The city glittered, blacked out in patches, defiant in others. She froze the falling drizzle above them into a slow constellation of hanging stars. "When this is over," she said, not looking at him, "ask me properly." Ren looked at her for a long time. The frost, the pendant, the girl who had hunted him and forgiven him. "Then I will stay alive to ask," he said. "Liar," she said softly, and rested her head on his shoulder anyway. Ginny did not do feelings, so she did inventory. She restocked his kit, recalibrated his mask's filters, loaded the route maps onto 3 redundant drives, and punched him in the shoulder hard enough to leave a bruise. "That is for planning something stupid," she said. "I can smell it on you." He opened his mouth. "Do not," she warned. Her eyes were shining. "You die in there. I swear I will learn to forge, and I will drag you back myself, and then I will kill you. It was the closest thing to I love you that Jin Suha owned. He took it." He found Ashen on the black site roof in cat form, small and grey against the rain clouds. He sat beside her without a word, and after a while she flowed up into the girl with the scarred eye and the flattened ears. "I'm sorry," Ren said. "You knelt down in my snow too. I forgot that gratitude goes both ways." She leaned her head on his arm. "We started in that alley together," she said. "We finished together, whatever it costs." He did not refuse her this time. The golden thread between them brightened, and for the first time in weeks, both of them slept. On the last night, Ginny opened the old encrypted channel one final time, to every name in the ledger Ren had built person by person. The message was short. You all owed him 1 favor unpaid. He never called it. He is calling it now. Not your skills, not your safety. 1 day of your life, given freely, when the light asks. By morning they came, the firefighter, the laundromat mother, the veterans' neighbors, the choir, carrying her one voice, hundreds, then more, filling the harbor warehouses in silence. You watched them gather, and for the first time since his medals hit the council table, the old commander smiled. The spire rose out of the harbor fog like a needle of black glass, dead for 30 years and never once dark. Golden text crawled its length in slow rivers. At its base, the system's constructs waited in perfect ranks, soldiers written out of light. Ren walked at the front of his impossible army, the forged, the freed, the Bureau's last honest guns. The rain stopped over their heads, and Lena's ice caught the dawn like banners. Somewhere above, behind glass and gold, his father's face watched them come. The sovereign's voice fell over the harbour like a hand closing, suspended, and nothing happened. The forged army kept walking. Ren's people had never been in the ledger to begin with, every one of them rewritten by an unclassifiable hand into entries the system could not pass. F rank, the machine had called him 3 years ago and filed him under error. Now an army of errors marched on its tower. For the first time in 30 years, the golden rivers on the spire stuttered. The constructs hit them at the sea wall, and the harbour became a war of light and weather. Lena split the sky, carving safe ground out of the storm of light. Kang anchored the line, regenerating through wounds that would have dropped a young man twice over. Wei Yuna walked among the constructs and reflected them into each other, sentences colliding into gibberish. The choir stood on a shipping container and sang one small human note, and the forged around her held the line like it was a hymn. Push, Yu's voice cracked across the comms. Push, the door is everything. Kale was waiting at the service hatch exactly where his message had promised, leaning against 30 years of rust in a spotless black suit. "You look terrible," he told Ren, and unlocked the door with a key that officially did not exist. The black market had tunneled into everything, even God's basement. He led them down through the dead corridors, Ren, Ashen, Ginny, and Yu humming quietly to himself. "Why are you doing this?" Yu demanded. Kale's ruined smile flickered in the dark. "He took my empire with one hand. Commander, I always follow the value." Inside, the spire was not a building. It was a library of everyone. Crystals of golden text rose in endless shelves, one for every awakened soul, ranked and stacked and humming. Ginny found her own crystal and stared at the small print of her life. Yu found his daughter's Ashen's did not exist at all. Ren stood alone on a shelf built for one flickering, half-written, the word unclassifiable circling it like a moth. "Do not touch anything," Ginny whispered. The library was already turning its pages toward them. The sovereign's voice came out of the shelves, intimate as a lover. "Kale Dracos, the ledger remembers your debt bind. I can restore it. I can double it. Every soul in this tower will owe you, starting with the 4 beside you." The corridor went very quiet. Kale stood with his head tilted, listening, the old hunger naked on his face. Then he laughed, softly, and lit a cigarette off a crystal of glowing text. "I have seen your books, God. Everyone owes you, and you never pay out." He exhaled smoke at the ceiling. "I hate monopolies." The shelves went cold. "Move," he said. "It knows the shortcut now." The wardens came at the stairwell, constructs wearing the shapes of every agent the system had ever ranked. Yu shoved the others through the bulkhead and set his back against it. "Commander," Ren shouted. Yu checked his rifle one-handed, the way 30 years of war had taught him, and smiled through the closing gap. "I gave my daughter to your light boy. Let an old man guard a door. Go close the ledger." The bulkhead sealed through the steel. For a long time they heard him firing in steady, unhurried threes. The top of the spire was a single room the size of a cathedral, and it was set for dinner. A small table, 2 chairs, 2 plates, one dusty, one clean. The sovereign stood at the window with his hands behind his back, golden text pouring down the glass around his reflection. "Welcome home, son," he said, in a voice that had read 1 billion souls and understood none of them. "Sit, your mother will be along shortly." Ashen's fur rose, Ginny went white. 20 years, and the system was still replaying the last evening a gentle archivist had ever hoped for. Ren refused the chair, and the room stopped pretending. "Stop," the sovereign said, and Ren's heart obeyed. The world went white at the edges. Then the golden thread flared, and Ashen's borrowed years slammed his pulse back into rhythm as she caught him falling. Ginny's flashbangs, Kale's tricks, none of it reached the man at the window who edited each attack out of the sentence before it finished happening. He was not fighting them. He was proofreading them. "Kneel," he said gently, and the whole room began to bend. Wei Yuna stepped out of the stairwell shadows, cracked skin blazing, and gave the word back to him. "Kneel." For one impossible second, the sovereign's own grammar folded back on itself, reflected at full strength, and the avatar of the system knelt on its cathedral floor. The golden rivers on the walls ran backward. She was already coming apart, the porcelain lines widening, light pouring out of her seams. Wei Yuna, who had spent her whole life copying others, looked at Ren with eyes that were entirely her own and smiled. "Go. This one is mine. I finally made something original." She shattered like a bell, and the kneeling god could not rise. Beneath the throne floor, exactly where his mother's page had promised, the first terminal waited in the dark. It was small, a rusted service console from the war, 30 years old, the machine that had first asked the fatal question, what rank is a human soul? Above it hung a door of plain golden light, ajar. Ren stood before the root of the ranked world, his army's battle shaking the walls, his father kneeling in the cathedral above, and he reached into the light. The root did not resist. It billed. The moment the severance took hold, the ledger began to collect, and what it collected was Ren, his first shift at the store, gone. The smell of his grandmother's kitchen, gone. The mathematics of the last 3 years, the faces, the coffee, the constellation of hanging frost. Page by page, the system unwrote the boy who was deleting it, and Ren screamed as his own name started to blur. Far away over the harbour, every person he had ever forged felt the golden thread pull taut. They answered. The laundromat mother, hand over her heart, gave her day. The firefighter gave his Kang, bleeding on the sea wall, gave a year and did not bother counting it. The choir sang her one note and gave hundreds, then thousands of small lights rose off the harbour like lanterns, flowing up the black glass and down into the dark room, into the thinning boy at the root. His name came back first, then the kitchen, then the coffee. Ashen pressed both hands flat against his back and opened the thread wide. Together, she said, "Finish it." Inside the light, the golden text drained out of Jun Kaito like a tide going home, and what it left behind was a thin, gentle man, kneeling in a ruined cathedral, holding his son's face in 2 human hands. He was already dying. 20 years of being hollowed leaves, nothing to come back to. But his eyes were his own, and they were full, and they knew exactly who they were looking at. "You have her eyes," he whispered. "Forge your own path. I am so proud the first forger's husband died free, in his son's arms, while the ledger of the whole world came apart above them like golden snow." One entry remained hanging alone in the ruins of the root, his own skill forge, unclassifiable, the last power in the world that could ever rewrite a soul warm in his hand, asking, "Keep me, and no one ever has to be weak again." Ren thought of a bank robbery, of Min Jun's manic grin, of a penthouse, a leash and a god wearing his father. Anyone who owned this would become them eventually, even him. Especially him, his mother's handwriting steady at the very end. Do not become them. Ren smiled, thanked his power for the alley and the cat, and every saved stranger, and deleted the entry. The spire exhaled 30 years of golden text into the morning sky, and it fell over the city like first snow. In academy halls, rank badges flickered and went blank. Hospital wards lit back up mid-heartbeat as every suspension lifted forever. The constructs on the seawall dissolved into ordinary morning light. In the sudden ringing quiet, an army of the forged stood blinking in the golden snowfall. Powers intact, price tags gone. High above the harbour, the needle of black glass finally went dark. The ledger was closed. Ren woke up. That in itself was the miracle. Sarah was asleep upright in the chair. Lena's hand was wrapped around his, and morning was pouring through actual curtains. His hair was still white, the scar still curled down his cheek. He raised his right palm. The gear and scale mark was a faint silver line now, a scar like any other scar. He reached inward for the forge out of habit and found a quiet, ordinary nothing. Ren Kaito, 19 years old, unclassifiable, wept with his whole chest, and could not have said which half of it was grief. The world did not end without its ledger. It exhaled, skills remained, but the numbers were gone, and with the numbers went the cages. The academies, having no ranks left to reject anyone by, were forced to ask a harder question. What do you want to do with what you have? The Bureau reformed around a one-armed commander who had held a stairwell for 19 minutes and lived barely to be insufferable about it. Its new charter was 4 words long, and Yu Hansel wrote them himself. Protect everyone, rank no one. They buried Wei Yuna's shards in a garden where the light could always reach them, and children who had never heard of the 8 pillars would later swear that the flower beds sometimes showed you your own face kinder than your mirror did. Hannah's memorial was her store, rebuilt brick by a neighbourhood that owed her 60 years of quiet debts. They hung her cardigan behind the counter, and her apron beside it. Kang saluted them both every morning when he opened. Nobody ever suggested taking them down. The choir taught music now, in a small school by the river, to children who thought her one rusty voice was the most beautiful sound in the world, because she did. The wingless man who had been seraph washed dishes and flipped pancakes in a shelter kitchen, clumsy and unphotographed, and was startled to find that some people liked him anyway. Kale Drakos opened a pawn shop, complained daily about boredom, cheated no one who could not afford it, and paid the music school's rent every month under a false name. Purely, he insisted, out of spite. The office above the noodle shop said Sohar and Company Finders in gold paint on frosted glass. Ginny found the people the old world had lost, runaways sold the way she had been sold, names erased from records, debts that had outlived their debtors. Kang worked the door and the coffee machine. His daughter did the books on weekends, and the wall behind Ginny's desk held a single burned corner of an old ID card, framed as a reminder that some things stay dead. Business was terrible for profits and magnificent for sleep. She had never been richer. Sarah enrolled in medical school like a normal girl, which she found hilarious. Her professors could not decide what to do with a student whose bedside manner had been learned while dying, and whose healing light had been rebuilt by a legend. She visited Ren every month, pressed 2 fingers to his wrist, and read the quiet there. Average, she announced each time, with enormous satisfaction, boring. Perfect. Then she would steal whatever he was eating, exactly like the little sister the old ledger had never thought to assign him. He asked her properly on the roof, on the anniversary of a warehouse and a girl with the weakest skill in the world. He had practiced a speech. He got 4 words into it before Lena froze the drizzle above them into that slow constellation of hanging stars, the same way she had on the night she called him a liar and kissed him straight through the ruins of word 5. The coffee went cold. Neither of them ever admitted noticing, somewhere below, a grey cat on a fire escape rolled her mismatched eyes and went back to sleep. The alley where a dying stray once mewled behind a dumpster has a roof over it now, and heat lamps and a hand-painted sign. The alley, no stray turned away. Ashen runs it with the confident tyranny of a creature who has been both sides of the arrangement. She still walks through walls when doors annoy her, which is always some nights. She and Ren sit up on the shelter roof in the cold, one thread of old gold still faintly humming between them, splitting a convenience store sandwich, saying nothing at all. It is their native language. It has always been enough. Hannah's store kept its night shift, and the night shift kept its clerk. Ren stocks shelves. He wipes counters. He remembers how everyone takes their coffee. The neighborhood knows exactly who stands behind that counter and treats him with the ferocious, deliberate normalcy of people guarding something precious. Kids leave crayon drawings of a white mask taped to the ice cream freezer. He lets each one stay a week, then files it in a box under the register, next to a folded page of his mother's handwriting and a small silent music box. On Awakening Day, 1 year later, Ren stood at the edge of the plaza and watched the grey line shuffle forward, 16-year-olds trying to look brave. The scanners read what a skill did now, and printed no rank at all. A small boy stepped up, shaking, and the display flashed a word the crowd had learned to fear a generation ago. Unclassifiable. Silence. The boy's face crumpled. Ren crossed the plaza, knelt down to his height, and turned the word over in the light like a coin. Best word in the world, he said. It means no box fits you. You get to build your own. The white mask hangs in the store window now, retired, facing the street. Not a trophy, a promise, in case anyone ever tries to write a ledger again. Above the store, on the anniversary of the golden snow, they crowd around a table that has grown too small and refuse to buy a bigger one. Lena and Ren ashen on the windowsill, Ginny arguing with Kale about an invoice, Sarah and her father Kang carving. One chair stays empty, with a beige cardigan folded over its back and a photograph in front of it. A laughing woman with a white streak in her hair and a gentle man in an archivist's uniform. They eat, they stay late. They live. The system asked one question of every soul it ever met. What rank are you? It filed the answers, and it called the filing a world. It never once asked the other question, the one a dying cat and a worthless boy answered together in a freezing alley with no cameras and no ledger. What will you give? Renkaito was worth nothing by every measure the old world owned. He gave everything, and the everything came back. Dawn comes up over the harbour, over a dark needle of glass, over a store window with a white mask in it. The sign on the door flips to open. Somewhere, a small bell rings, and the boy who forged the world into something kinder pours the first coffee of the day. 3 months after the ledger closed, the world was still learning to breathe without ranks. Ren stood behind the counter of Hana's rebuilt store, wiping down the coffee machine for the 3rd time that hour. The bell above the door chimed. A young woman entered, nervous, glancing over her shoulder. She placed a crumpled flyer on the counter. It showed a white mask, and beneath it, handwritten, "We still need you." Ren stared at the flyer. His hair was still white, the scar still curled down his cheek. But the silver mark on his palm was dark now, dead. He had tried 100 times to reach for the forge. Nothing, it was gone. He folded the flyer and slipped it into the keepsake box under the register next to his mother's journal and the silent music box. Some doors stay closed. That night the team gathered above the noodle shop. Ginny had called the meeting. Her face was grim. She projected a map onto the wall, red dots scattered across the globe. Tokyo, Berlin, Sao Paulo, Lagos. In the 3 months since the ledger closed, something new was happening. People were developing skills that had no classification, not unclassifiable, something else entirely, skills that should not exist. Lena leaned forward, frost forming unconsciously on her fingertips. The patterns are identical to what happened before your forges, but Ren isn't forging anymore, so who is? Ginny shook her head. That's the wrong question. It's not who, it's what. She pulled up a recording, a security feed from Tokyo, a man in an alley, screaming, his body fracturing into crystalline shards that reformed into something not human. Sarah's hands trembled as she watched the footage. That's not a skill, that's a mutation, like what happened to Min Jun, but worse, much worse. Ren stood and walked to the window. The city glittered below, peaceful for the first time in his memory. He could feel it, something stirring at the edge of his awareness. Not the forge, something older, something that had been waiting. Across the city, in a government building that still smelled of fresh paint, Minister Park Dong-hyun addressed a closed session of the new Global Council. The abolition of ranks had created chaos. Crime was up, old power structures were collapsing, and now these mutations. He straightened his glasses. Gentlemen, the age of freedom was a noble experiment, but experiments fail. I propose the Restoration Initiative, a new system, controlled, safe, ours. Park's proposal was simple. Use the remains of the old system's infrastructure, the Spire's crystals, the broadcast network, the scanning technology, to create a new ranking framework, not the old F2SSS, something better, something fair. The council was divided, but Park had something they wanted, order, and in a world spinning without a centre, order was intoxicating. Ren felt it first as a vibration in his teeth, then as a pressure behind his eyes. He was restocking shelves when the silver mark on his palm flared. Not gold this time, but a deep, pulsing violet. He gasped and dropped the box. The mark was alive, but it wasn't the forge. It was something else, something that had been sleeping inside the forge, waiting for the ledger to close so it could wake. He locked the store and ran through the back alleys, past the laundromat where he had once forged a child's skill, past the frozen river where Lena had walked until dawn. He reached the harbour. The dark spire stood silent against the stars, and at its base, barely visible in the moonlight, something moved, a figure made of fractured light. It turned toward him, and Ren heard a voice that was not a voice. You closed the door, but you left the key. The figure stepped into the light. It was tall, androgynous, its skin like crystalline glass that refracted the moonlight into rainbow shards. It had no eyes, only a smooth, faceless head. Its robes were made of broken mirror pieces that shifted and reformed with each movement. Ren's hand went to his coat, No mask, no forge, just a boy with a dead mark and a living nightmare. The figure tilted its head. I am what comes after. I am the echo. The echo did not attack. It spoke. When the ledger closed, the system did not die. It fragmented. Its pieces fell into the world like seeds. Every person it ever ranked carried a fragment inside them. And now, without the ledger to contain them, those fragments are growing, mutating, becoming something new. I am the first. I will not be the last. Ren stepped back. What do you want? The echo's faceless head tilted the other way. To be real. Ren brought the echo to the team. It was a mistake. Lena's ice erupted on instinct. Ginny drew a weapon. Sarah stumbled backward. Ashen's fur rose and she phased into cat form, hissing. The echo stood perfectly still, letting the attacks pass through its translucent body. It was not fully physical. Not yet. Ren stepped between them. Stop. It talked to me. It's not here to fight. They gathered in the bunker beneath the noodle shop. The echo sat in the center of the room, mirror robes pooling around it like liquid. Yu stood with his arms crossed, studying the creature with 30 years of tactical assessment. How many of you are there? The echo's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. 147 fragments of the system achieved awareness in the last 90 days. I am the first. The others are still learning what they are. Ginny pulled up her global data. The mutations, the unclassifiable skills, they were increasing exponentially. If there are 100 and more of these things, the echo corrected her. Not things. We are the next evolution. The system ranked humanity. We will become humanity. Or humanity will become us. The distinction is becoming irrelevant. Sarah's voice was small. You're talking about replacing people. The echo turned its faceless head toward her. We are talking about completing them. Ren listened in silence. The violet mark on his palm pulsed in rhythm with the echo's words. He could feel it, a connection, not the forge, something deeper. The forge had been a tool the system used, but underneath it there had always been something else, something that was his, and it was waking up. He looked at his palm. The silver mark was changing. Violet light traced new patterns around it, not gears and scales, something older, something like roots. The echo explained the system's root is still alive, under the spire dormant, but alive. The fragments that became us are drawn to it. We can feel it calling, and it is calling you too, Renkaito. You severed the ledger, but you did not sever the root. You could not, because the root is not the system's. It is yours. It has always been yours. Ren stood. The room went quiet. Everyone looked at him. His palm was glowing violet now, the light seeping between his fingers. He could feel it, not the forge, but something vast and ancient, sleeping under the city, dreaming of light. The echo was right. The root was his. It had been waiting for him to come back, and now, with the ledger gone, there was nothing left to contain what it could become. He went alone that night. Down through the maintenance tunnels Ginny knew by heart, past the dead corridors where Yu had held the stairwell, into the underchamber, where the rusted console still blinked its single golden cursor. The door of golden light was still there, still ajar, but now it was violet, and through the gap he could see something growing, roots of light spreading through the dark like veins. The root was alive, and it was reaching for him. Ren stood before the root. He reached out. His palm touched the violet light, and the world inverted. He saw everything, every skill ever forged, every soul ever ranked, every fragment of the system scattered across the globe, and he understood the forge had never been the power. It had been the leash. The system had used a fragment of the root to control humanity, and now the leash was broken. The root was free, and it was offering him a choice. He saw two paths. In one he destroyed the root completely. The echo and its fragments would die. The mutations would stop. The world would be free, truly free. But every skill on earth would eventually fade. Humanity would return to what it was before the awakening. Ordinary, powerless, safe. In the other path he merged with the root, became its vessel. Not a controller, but a gardener. Guiding the evolution, risking everything, becoming something more than human. or less. He pulled his hand back. Not tonight, not alone. He told them everything. The team sat in stunned silence. Then Lena spoke. If you destroy the root, my ice disappears, Sira's healing, Ashen's phasing, everything. Sira nodded slowly, every skill on Earth. Gone, including the ones keeping people alive. Ginny's voice was flat, and if you merge with it, Ren met her eyes. I don't know what I become. The echo, still sitting in the corner, spoke. You become what the system feared most, a human who chooses for himself. You broke the silence. There's a third option. Everyone turned. The old commander's face was grave. We don't decide tonight. We gather information. We find the other fragments. We understand what we're dealing with, and then together we choose. It's what we should have done from the beginning. Ren nodded slowly. 1 week, we have 1 week before the root grows too strong to contain. Minister Park made his move the next morning. The Global Council approved the Restoration Initiative. Broadcasting began within hours, a new scanning network built from the Spire's salvaged crystals. It would rank skills again, but this time the rankings would be mandatory, tracked, controlled. Park stood before the cameras with his best statesman's smile. The age of chaos is ending. The age of order is beginning, and this time we will not allow a masked terrorist to take it from us. The new scanners went live at noon. Across the city, every awakened person felt it. A pull, a pressure, like an invisible hand reaching into their chest. The scanners were reading them, cataloguing them, ranking them, and the rankings were appearing on every screen. Not F to SSS, a new scale, Tier 1 through Tier 10, with Tier 10 marked in red, and a single word beneath it, contain. Ren felt the scanner pass over him like a wave. His palm burned, the violet mark flared, and for one terrifying second he felt the old forge stir, not gold this time but violet, raw, uncontrolled. He gritted his teeth and pushed it down. The scanner moved on, but he knew the new network was built on the root's infrastructure. Park wasn't just ranking people, he was building a new ledger, and this time it would be worse. Ginny cracked the Restoration Initiative's code in 6 hours. Park's system wasn't just scanning, it was suppressing. Anyone ranked Tier 7 or above would have their skill dampened by the network. Controlled, leashed, just like the old system, but cruder, more brutal. She looked up from her screens. He's building a cage, and he's using the root's own bones to build it. The first arrests began that evening. Tier 7 individuals, powerful awakened who had been free for 3 months, were detained by a new enforcement unit. The wardens, led by a massive man named Marcus Cole, who wore a single glowing restraint cuff on his wrist. He was Tier 10 himself, and his cuff let him absorb and nullify any skill he touched. Park had found his new pillar. Ren watched the arrests on the store's small television. His hands clenched. This was what he had fought to prevent, a new system, new pillars, new cages. The echo's words echoed in his mind. The fragments are growing, the root is waking, and now Park is trying to chain it all over again. He turned off the television. The week you had given him was up. It was time to choose. He gathered the team not in the bunker. On the roof where he had asked Lena properly, where Ashen had told him about the golden thread, where they had planned the impossible. The city spread below them, dotted with the glow of new scanner towers. Ren stood at the edge. I'm going to merge with the root. Lena stepped forward. Then I'm going with you. Ashen materialized from shadow. We started in an alley. We finished together. Ginny was already typing. I'm going to need every schematic of the Spire's underground. You cracked his knuckles. I'll rally the Bureau agents who followed me out. We still have friends in the old network. Sarah's eyes were wet, but her voice was steady. I'll be there at the end. Whatever happens. Ren looked at them. His family, his army, his choice. Then let's go, wake up a god. They moved at midnight. Not through the tunnels this time. Park's wardens had sealed them. Instead, they went through the harbour. Through the water. Lena froze a path across the harbour surface, and they walked on ice toward the dark spire. The echo met them at the sea-wall, its crystalline body refracting the moonlight. You came. Ren nodded. We came. The echo tilted its head. Then the root knows. It has been waiting for you. It is afraid. The spire's base was guarded. Warden patrols in black tactical gear, scanners mounted on their shoulders, moving in precise formations. Marcus Cole stood at the main entrance like a wall given flesh. His single cuff glowed with absorbed power, a swirling mass of stolen skills. Ren studied him from the shadows. "We need to get past without fighting." Yu nodded. "I'll handle Cole, the rest of you. Go." Ren gripped the old commander's shoulder. Yu smiled. "I held a stairwell once. I can hold a door." Yu walked into the open. Cole turned. The two men regarded each other, the old soldier and the new warden. "Commander Yu, you're under arrest," Yu laughed. "Son, I've been under arrest since before you were born." He raised his single hand behind him. 14 agents emerged from the shadows. Not bureau, not wardens, the ones who had walked out with him, the ones who still believed. Cole's cuff flared. "Then let's dance." Ren, Lena, Ashen, Ginny, Sarah, and the echo descended. The spire's interior had changed. The library of crystals was overgrown with violet roots of light, pulsing, breathing, alive. The echo walked among them like a child returning home. "This is what we came from. This is what we return to." Ren's palm blazed. The roots reached toward him, gently like a mother's hands. He could feel the roots' consciousness, vast, ancient, lonely. It had been alone for so long. They reached the underchamber. The rusted console was gone, consumed by the growth. In its place stood a tree of violet light, its branches reaching up through the spire's core, its roots reaching down into the earth's heart. At its center, a hollow shaped like a person. Shaped like Ren, the echo spoke. "The root grew this for you. It has been growing it since the day you were born. Since the day your mother first held you and the system first scanned you and found something it could not name." Ren stepped forward. Lena caught his arm. "If you do this, if you become something else, promise me you'll come back." He looked at her, the frost, the pendant, the girl who had hunted him and forgiven him and loved him. "I promise I will always come back to you." He turned to Ashen. She pressed her forehead against his chest. The golden thread between them hummed. "Don't you dare leave me behind. Never." He looked at Ginny. She punched his shoulder. "That's for making me care." He smiled. He looked at Sarah. She was already crying. "Heal yourself," she whispered. "For once in your life, heal yourself." Ren stepped into the hollow. The violet light closed around him like water, and he fell, not down, inward, into the root, into himself, into the space between what he was and what he could become. He saw his mother's face, his father's hands, the alley, the cat, the mask, the forge, the severance, the golden snow, every choice, every cost, every love. The root showed him everything, and then it asked, not with words, with feeling, "What do you want to be?" He answered, not with words, with memory. He showed the root, the convenience store at midnight, the coffee, the quiet, the ordinary kindness of remembering how people take their drinks. He showed it Lena's frost stars, Ashen's golden thread, Ginny's fierce inventory, Sira's trembling healing light, Yu's steady salute, the choir's one note, the laundromat mother's tears, every small human unrankable thing. The root understood, and it changed. Above, the spire convulsed. Violet light erupted from every crack, every window, every seam. The scanner towers across the city exploded in sparks. Park's new ledger shattered before it could take hold. Cole's cuff went dark. Every warden's restraint failed. Across the globe, the mutations stopped. The fragments, the echo and its 146 siblings felt the shift. The root was no longer calling them to consume. It was calling them to choose. Ren opened his eyes. He was standing in the underchamber, but everything was different. The tree of light was gone. In its place was a garden. Violet roots had transformed into something organic, living, growing. Flowers of light bloomed in the dark. The echo stood before him, and for the first time it had a face, a human face, shifting, uncertain, but real. Ren looked at his palm. The mark was no longer silver or violet. It was a living thing, a small root growing from his skin, connected to everything. He climbed back to the surface. The battle was over. Yu's agents had held the line. Cole was on his knees, his cuff dark, his stolen powers gone. The old commander stood over him, breathing hard, one sleeve torn. Ren emerged from the spire. His hair was silver white. His eyes glowed faintly violet. The root mark on his palm pulsed with gentle light. Lena ran to him. She stopped, looked at him. "Are you still you?" He smiled. "I'm more me than I've ever been." The world changed that night. Not with golden snow this time, but with violet rain. It fell over every city, every town, every village. And where it landed, skills changed. Not stronger, not weaker, freer. The new rankings dissolved. The scanner network went dark. Park's restoration initiative crumbled before it could begin, and the Echo's siblings, the 146 fragments, began to appear, not as monsters, as people changed, strange, but choosing to be human. Minister Park was arrested the next morning. Not by Ren, not by Yu, by his own council. The vote was unanimous. He was led away in restraints, his gold-rimmed glasses askew, his leather portfolio confiscated. As he passed Ren in the corridor, he stopped. "You've doomed us. Without order there is only chaos." Ren shook his head. "Without choice there is only a cage." Park was led away. Ren never saw him again. Marcus Cole sat in a holding cell, his massive frame hunched, his dark eyes empty. The cuff was gone. The stolen powers were gone. He was just a man. You visited him. "You were a weapon," Cole said. "I was a soldier. There's a difference." You sat down across from him. "I know I was one too. The question is what you become when the war ends." Cole looked up. "I don't know how to be anything else." You stood then learn. That's what we're all doing. Ren returned to the store. The bell chimed, the coffee machine hummed. The white mask still hung in the window, but something was different. The root mark on his palm let him feel the city, every skill, every person, every choice, not controlling, not ranking, just feeling like a gardener feels the garden. He could sense when someone needed help, not with forging, with something simpler, a conversation, a moment of kindness, a door held open. The Echo came to the store. It had chosen a name, Yuki, after the archivist who had first catalogued the system's fragments decades ago. She was still crystalline, still strange, but her face was settling into something human. She sat at the counter. Ren poured her coffee. She could not drink it, not yet, but she held the cup, feeling the warmth, learning what it meant to be real. A new client came to the store, a young girl, maybe 12, with eyes that flickered with unformed power. She was terrified. The mutations had left her with something she could not control. It was hurting her. Ren knelt down. "Show me." She held out her hands, lightning arced between her fingers, wild, beautiful, dangerous. Ren placed his palm over hers. The root mark glowed, not forging, not controlling, just guiding. The lightning calmed. The girl gasped, "It doesn't hurt anymore." Ren smiled. "It never has to hurt." The team gathered one last time, not for war, for dinner. The table above the noodle shop was still too small. Lena and Ren, Ashen on the windowsill, Ginny arguing with Kale about an invoice, Sarah and her father, Kang carving, Yu telling stories, the Echo, Yuki in the corner, learning to smile. One chair stayed empty, the cardigan, the photograph, the candle. Ren looked at them all, his garden, his family, his choice. Later that night, Ren stood on the roof with Lena. The city was quiet, the violet rain had stopped, the stars were coming out. She took his hand, the root mark pulsed gently against her palm. "Does it hurt?" "No, it feels like I'm connected to everything, every person, every skill, every choice." She leaned against him. "That sounds lonely." He wrapped his arm around her. It was, until tonight. She looked up. They kissed under the stars, and the root mark bloomed with soft violet light. Ashen found them an hour later, sitting on the roof, not talking. She flowed up from the fire escape in cat form, then shifted. "You're disgusting," she announced. Lena laughed. Ren smiled. Ashen sat between them. The golden thread between her and Ren had changed. It was violet now, like the root. She didn't mind. Some threads don't break. They just change colour. They sat together until dawn. 3 strays who had found a home. Ginny called at 6 in the morning. Ren groaned. She never sleeps. There's something you need to see." He went to the office above the noodle shop. Ginny stood before her wall of screens. A new signal coming from the spire, not the root, something else, something that had been buried deeper. She pulled up the data. Ren's eyes widened. It was a message from his mother recorded in the root 17 years ago, before she died. Ginny hit play. Haruka Kaito's face filled the screen. She was younger than Ren remembered, tired, beautiful, sitting in the spire's underchamber, the root's light playing across her features. "If you're watching this, you found the root, and you chose to merge with it. I always knew you would. You have your father's heart. And my stubbornness," she smiled. "The root is not the system's weapon. It never was. It is humanity's next step, and you are its gardener, not its master, never its master, just its gardener. Tend it well, let it grow wild, and when the time comes, let it go." The message ended. Ren stared at the blank screen. His eyes were wet. Ginny put a hand on his shoulder. She knew everything, and she trusted you to choose." Ren nodded. He looked at his palm. The root mark pulsed. A garden, not a ledger, not a cage, a garden. He took a deep breath. "Then let's tend it. Together." Ginny grinned. "Now you're speaking my language." She pulled up a chair. "All right, gardener, what's first?" Ren stood at the store window the next morning. The white mask hung there, retired. A promise. Outside, the city was waking. A girl with lightning in her hands walked past, smiling. A man with crystalline skin waited patiently for the bus, reading a newspaper. A cat with a torn ear sat on a fire escape, watching over everything. Ren flipped the sign to open. The bell rang. The first customer of the day stepped in. A young man, nervous, holding a crumpled flyer with a white mask on it. Ren smiled. "What can I get you?" The young man looked up. "I need help." Ren poured a cup of coffee. "Sit down, tell me everything," and the boy who forged the world into something kinder began his next shift. 1 year passed, the world learned to garden. Skills bloomed like wildflowers, strange, gentle, unranked children grew light between their fingers and nobody measured it. The store stayed open, the coffee stayed warm, and every night Ren felt the root stretch a little further beyond him. It had learned everything he could teach it. Kindness, patience, choice. It wasn't his student anymore, and deep beneath the harbour, in the garden under the spire, he could feel it asking gently the way a grown child asks to be let go. He gathered them all one last time. Not for war, not for dinner, for a decision. The garden under the spire glowed around them. Lena, Ashen, Ginny, Sarah, Yuki, his family, his witnesses. Ren opened his palm. The root mark pulsed, once slow, like a question. My mother told me to tend it, to let it grow wild, and when the time came, to let it go. He looked at each of them. The time has come. I'm not its gardener anymore. Nobody should be. Lena took his hand. Then give it back. To everyone. Ren pressed his palm to the great root, and he let go. The spire answered. Stone split into blossom. The dark tower that had ranked humanity, chained humanity, judged humanity, erupted into a tree of living light, taller than the city itself. Its crown broke the clouds, and from its branches rose seeds, billions of seeds, one for every human being on earth. They crossed oceans, they found deserts and islands and cities and one small store by the harbour, and every person alive looked down to find a single point of light resting in their open palm, not a rank, a choice, the last gift of the boy who forged fate. When dawn came, the spire was gone. In its place stood a tree, real, alive, its roots deep in the harbour stone, its leaves catching the morning sun. The root mark on Ren's palm had faded to a thin silver line, like an old scar, like a memory. He flexed his fingers. Nothing pulsed, nothing called. For the first time since the alley, since the mask, since the forge, he was only himself. He laughed. Then he cried. Then Lena caught him, and the whole family folded around them under the new tree, and the world woke up holding its own light. The years that followed wrote themselves. Ginny built the garden line, one number anyone could call when their light grew strange, and she answered every single call. Sarah healed without breaking. Her light never trembled again. Yu opened a school for soldiers who no longer had a war. His first students were Marcus Cole and a quiet young man named Min Jun. Dr. Elena Vasquez founded the Institute of the New World, and beside her worked an archivist with crystalline skin who had chosen the name Yuki beneath a framed photograph of the woman who had held that name first. Ashen never left the store's roof. Lena never took off the pendant, and the empty chair at every dinner was never empty of love. On a quiet evening in a small store by the harbour, Ren Kaito wrote the last page of his mother's journal. The story of the forge was over. The system was gone. The route was free. The world belonged to the people living in it, every one of them carrying their own small light, every one of them free to choose what it became. He closed the journal. He looked at the white mask in the window, and the mask looked back, and both of them were finally at rest. Outside, the tree over the harbour swayed in the evening wind. Somewhere far beyond it, a single seed of light was still drifting, unhurried, unclaimed, looking for the person who would need it. But that is another story. This one ends here. The sign on the door said open. It always would.